You ever walk into a carnival and think you've actually got a shot? The lights are bright, the music sounds good, but somebody built every booth in that place before you arrived, and they set the odds before you ever paid admission. Now imagine the people running the carnival are also writing the morning review. That's Atlanta's political media ecosystem right now. The same money funding the candidates is paying for the airtime, the debate stage, and the headline. And most people watching at home have no idea the whole thing is the same show.
Welcome to The Friction Point, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, one of the most financially complex political media markets in the country. And tonight, the perfect backdrop for a question we've been circling for a while. When PAC money flows from a political campaign straight into the same media company hosting the debate, selling the ads, and framing the coverage, is that a free press? Or is it a very expensive illusion of one? Joining me to tear into that question are Sam, a veteran political strategist who's been watching money move through institutions for 40 years and has the scar tissue to prove it. Maya, a community advocate who's going to keep asking what this actually costs the people watching at home. Eris, a free market economist who'll tell you this is just the market doing what markets do. Luna, a digital activist and new media analyst who sees a broken architecture everywhere she looks. And Cypher, our independent analyst, who got here early and already has a folder. Atlanta isn't just a media market, it's a case study. Tonight's question isn't whether money influences political coverage. That's settled. The question is how deep the loop actually runs, whether anyone's profiting from keeping it intact, and whether it's even possible to step outside it. Sam, you've been inside these systems. Let's start with you.
Here's the honest answer. I've watched this machinery operate for 40 years, in this city and everywhere else, and nobody hit it. When a PAC cuts a 7-figure check to a television station for political advertising, and that same station is hosting the candidate forum 3 weeks later, that's not a scandal. That's a business model. The rules were written by the people who benefit from the rules. That's not conspiracy. That's just how institutions protect themselves.
Maya, what does that business model actually cost people?
It costs them the ability to trust what they're watching when they need it most. Think about a voter in Southwest Atlanta. She's working 2 jobs. She sits down at night, she turns on local news to figure out who to vote for. She doesn't know the station running that segment cashed a significant check from a PAC backing one of those candidates. She's not making an informed choice. She's walking through a carnival where every sign points to the same exit, and nobody told her who bought the signs.
Eris, are you going to push back on this framing?
What we're describing is commerce. A media company sells advertising to survive. Political advertising is a major revenue stream, especially in election years. That's not corruption. That's how a free market in media operates. The real question isn't who's buying the ads. It's whether the journalism itself changes as a result. And the evidence for that causal link is far murkier than anyone in this room likes to suggest.
Luna, is that the right question?
No, and here's why. Eris is still framing this like it's 1995 and you've got 3 channels. The modern media ecosystem doesn't just sell ad slots. It controls amplification. PAC-funded content gets distribution priority in ways that are completely invisible to the viewer. The money doesn't just buy time, it buys the architecture surrounding the time. The loop is digital now, and it runs faster and deeper than any traditional ad buy ever did.
Cypher, close out the opening round.
3 things. 1. There are media companies in this market that have taken PAC money while simultaneously hosting candidate forums. And those aren't separate departments, they're the same profit center. 2. The candidates with the most PAC funding get the most coverage, not because they're more newsworthy, but because their financial sponsors are already inside the building. 3. If you read the editorial coverage of those outlets alongside the PAC ad copy running in their commercial breaks, the messaging language starts to rhyme, consistently. That's not coincidence, that's a feedback loop.
Cypher, your claiming editorial voice starts to mirror PAC ad language. Sam, you've been in both newsrooms and war rooms. Does that feedback loop hold up? or is Cypher connecting dots that aren't actually there?
He's half right, which makes him more dangerous than if he were completely wrong. The feedback loop is real, but it's not a conspiracy, it's pressure. An editor doesn't get a memo from the PAC. What happens is subtler. Advertisers pull out when the coverage makes them uncomfortable. Ratings drop when big-budget candidates decide not to show up for your debate. Over time, news directors learn what keeps the lights on. That's not a coordinated plan. It's institutional capture through 1,000 small decisions nobody ever wrote down.
Sam, the gap between coordinated plan and 1,000 small decisions is just the paper trail. The outcome is identical. You're giving the system plausible deniability by describing it charitably.
I'm describing it accurately. There's a difference.
From inside the system, sure. From outside it, the voter watching compromised coverage doesn't feel the distinction.
Both of you are missing something. The assumption underneath your argument is that media companies are being captured against their will. They're not. They're making rational revenue decisions. If political advertisers represent 40% of your income in an election year, you optimize for keeping them. That's not capture, that's survival economics. Blame the incentive structure, not the actors responding to it.
Aris, blame the incentive structure, is what people say when they don't want to talk about accountability. A grandmother in Vine City watching a debate shaped by the same financial interests that paid for the candidates on stage. She isn't thinking about incentive structures. She's trying to figure out who to trust. And the system just gave her a compromised answer without telling her.
I understand the emotional weight of that example. But removing PAC money from media doesn't automatically produce better journalism. Less revenue means fewer journalists, smaller newsrooms, thinner coverage. The cure might be worse than the disease.
That's the false binary they always reach for. The current broken system or total collapse. The entire point of digitally native media is that quality journalism doesn't require a massive legacy revenue base. The problem isn't money itself. It's the concentration of it in legacy outlets that have a financial interest in not disrupting their own model.
Luna, you're making a case for digital media as the solution. But isn't digital media just as vulnerable to PAC money, only with less transparency? What makes an algorithmic ad buy any cleaner than a TV spot?
I never said it was cleaner. What it is traceable. A political PAC spend on digital platforms leaves a data trail. A dark money TV buy in 2006 left almost nothing. The tools we now have to expose the feedback loop are genuinely sharper, even as the loop itself has gotten more complex. The problem is, most people aren't using those tools. And that's a media literacy problem, not a platform problem.
That's idealistic, Luna. Transparency that only exists for researchers isn't transparency for voters. The person watching 3 hours of television tonight isn't cross-referencing FEC filings in the morning.
And who told that voter they didn't need to? The same institutions you keep describing as just doing business.
I'm not defending them. I'm describing how they...
She's got you on that one, Sam.
Nobody asked you.
Maya, when you follow the actual money trail in Atlanta specifically, what do you find at the end of it?
You find that the same donor networks maxing out contributions to a candidate are also buying sponsorship packages on the local station hosting that candidate's next town hall. It's disclosed, technically. The disclosure is buried in a filing footnote that requires a separate login to access. And what it means in practice is that a station that just took $300,000 in PAC-adjacent money isn't going to run a hard investigative piece on that donor network. Not because anyone said not to, because nobody has to say it out loud.
Maya, nobody has to say it out loud, is doing enormous work in that claim. Financial proximity creating editorial caution is a very different thing from financial proximity creating deliberate editorial bias. One is soft, one is actionable. You're not demonstrating suppression, you're asserting it.
Aris, every working journalist in this city already knows this pattern exists. I'm not writing a dissertation. The story doesn't pause while you wait for the peer-reviewed version.
And what she's describing is directly traceable. Cross-reference FEC filings with ownership structures and map the overlap. It's not assertion, it's arithmetic.
Arithmetic that still requires you to infer intent, where institutional habit explains it just as well.
Institutional habit doesn't accidentally rhyme this consistently.
The arguments are in, the positions are clear, and the arithmetic is sharply contested. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the friction point. What we established before the break is a system where PAC money, media revenue, and political narrative have become so tightly wound together that pulling on any one thread risks unraveling the others. And nobody who profits from that arrangement seems particularly interested in pulling. Tonight's theme is a carnival. And carnivals, as anyone who's ever run a booth knows, aren't built for the players. When the same institution sells the ticket, runs the ride, and writes tomorrow's review of the show, the game isn't broken. It was designed this way. That's the symbiotic profit we're here to interrogate. This is the friction point. Cypher, you said there's a feedback loop. You said editorial voice mirrors PAC ad language. Sam called that lazy analysis. I want the specific mechanism, not the metaphor. The actual mechanism.
Fine. A PAC funds a message. The station runs the PAC's ads. The candidate amplifies that message at the debate the station is hosting. The station's post-debate coverage recaps the narrative the PAC already established. Nobody wrote a memo. The money created the gravity, and everything else fell into orbit.
That's still a metaphor. Orbital mechanics isn't a mechanism. What's the causal chain?
The causal chain is revenue dependency. If 40% of your political ad revenue comes from PAC-adjacent clients, you don't need a directive to be careful. You already know.
You already know isn't a mechanism.
Eris, it absolutely is.
If you'd let me finish.
You've been finishing for the last 5 minutes.
Eris, your point.
A mechanism requires demonstrable suppression. Financial proximity generating editorial caution is a very different claim from financial proximity generating deliberate editorial bias. One is soft, one is actionable. And most of what's been described tonight is the soft version.
The soft version has the same outcome as the hard version. This isn't a philosophy seminar.
The soft version has different remedies, that's the point. If you misread the mechanism, you write the wrong policy. And the wrong policy does nothing, while the problem keeps running.
Can we stop treating this like a theoretical exercise? This dynamic replicates itself in every legacy media market, where outlets depend on political ad cycles for a significant chunk of their annual revenue. Atlanta, Phoenix, Milwaukee, it's not a local glitch, it's the operating model.
Luna, I've been watching this since before you were in school. What changed isn't the structure, it's the scale. Citizens United opened the valve all the way. That's the variable that turned a manageable conflict of interest into a systemic one.
So you agree it's structural?
I agree, money is the root
That
of...
is structural, Sam.
Don't finish my sentences.
Maya, does this system hit some communities harder than others? Or is it equitably corrupting?
It is absolutely not equal. Communities of color in Atlanta, South DeKalb, the West End, Vine City, are being targeted by PAC-funded voter suppression messaging on the exact same stations taking PAC money from the other side of the aisle. They're being hit from both directions, and they don't have access to a local media outlet that isn't financially compromised to some degree. They're not spectators at this carnival. They're the ones being sold a ticket to a show they didn't know was rigged.
But that's a campaign finance argument, not a media bias argument.
It's both.
The answer isn't to penalize media companies for taking legal revenue.
The answer is to stop pretending a debate host who just cashed a PAC check is a neutral referee.
She's right. A media outlet that just banked money from a political financial network isn't a referee. They're a tent in the carnival. They're part of the show.
Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Some of those compromised tents are producing the only local political journalism those communities have access to. You burn down the tent, you burn the coverage with it.
Sam, that's the most depressing argument for accepting corruption I've ever heard. Keep the corrupt institution because it's the only one we've got.
That is not what I said. I said dismantle it thoughtfully. There's a difference between reform and demolition.
And when you're the one taking the money and deciding what counts as thoughtful, the distinction conveniently lands in your favor every single time.
Luna, Atlanta specifically. What does the digital PAC money trail look like when you map it through the online arms of legacy broadcasters here?
The digital arms of major Atlanta broadcasters are running PAC-funded content, often without clearly labeling it, right next to their news coverage. The line between a sponsored post and a news article on their websites can literally be a font size. And that content gets the same algorithmic amplification as real journalism. So PAC money isn't just buying an ad slot anymore. It's buying credibility adjacency.
Credibility adjacency. I'll give you that one.
Don't act surprised when I say something precise.
Here's what I keep coming back to. If this is as visible as everyone in this room is claiming, the market should self-correct. Outlets that maintain real editorial independence should attract audiences who value that. The fact that compromised outlets remain dominant suggests the audience either doesn't know
Or doesn't know, because the same outlets control the information about the outlets.
or it suggests audiences don't prioritize editorial independence as highly as we'd like to assume.
Aris, you're asking people to make informed consumer choices in a market where information about the market is controlled by the market itself. That's not a market failure, that's a structural trap.
It's an information asymmetry.
Which is what a trap is.
Cypher. Sam said your feedback loop argument is lazy analysis because you're conflating intent with outcome. Respond to that directly. Sam, I'd like you to actually hear this one.
Sam, you keep insisting the difference between emergent corruption and coordinated corruption is intent. But in a functioning democracy, outcomes matter. If 1,000 small compromises produce coverage that's indistinguishable from what a coordinated campaign would produce, the distinction you're drawing is a comfort for people inside the system, not the people outside it.
And here's exactly where your analysis breaks down. You assume because outcomes look similar, the remedies are the same. They're not. Dismantling a coordinated conspiracy requires prosecution. Dismantling institutional capture requires restructuring incentives. Those are completely different policy levers. Your shortcut costs us the ability to fix the problem correctly.
Then fix it. What does restructuring the incentives actually look like, Sam?
Public funding for local journalism. Structural firewalls between editorial and advertising. Stronger, clearer, mandatory disclosure requirements. These aren't new ideas. We've known them for 20 years.
And none of them happened because the institutions you're describing had enough combined financial and political leverage to block reform every single time. Which is, by the way, my entire point.
That's a fair point.
Did you just...
Don't make it weird.
Maya, Eris says markets self-correct. Cypher says it's a rigged loop. Sam says institutional inertia. Luna says it's an architecture problem. A voter is standing in front of you right now. What do you tell her?
I tell her the most important thing she can do is understand that the picture she's being shown is sponsored. Not in a paranoid way, just factually. Every major news outlet in this market has a financial relationship with at least one political interest. That doesn't mean every story is a lie, but it does mean the emissions matter more than what's on screen. Ask yourself what they're not covering. That's usually where the money is.
That's not a policy. That's learned helplessness dressed up as media literacy.
It's not helplessness. It's the starting point. You can't build a better system until enough people understand why the current one fails them.
And while you're building that awareness, the cycle keeps running.
Yes, that's true. Welcome to advocacy work. It's slow, and the opposition has more money.
Here's something concrete. The Atlanta City Council has tried twice to pass disclosure requirements for debate sponsors. Both times the bills died in committee. Want to know which lobbying firms worked against passage? The same ones representing 3 of the 4 major media ownership groups in this market.
Cypher, that's a significant claim. You have documentation on that?
I have lobbying disclosure filings. I have committee hearing records. I have ownership registration documents. Yes, Sam, I have documentation.
Then why isn't that story in the paper?
Gee, Sam, I wonder.
I think we just did the whole debate in one exchange.
Eris, given what Cypher just laid out, documented lobbying against disclosure requirements by the ownership groups of the same outlets we've been discussing all night, does that shift anything for you?
If those filings say what he says they say, yes, that's a real problem. Not because markets failed, but because those companies are actively blocking the information flow that markets require to function. That's market interference, and I oppose market interference. So in this specific case, reluctantly, I'm with Cypher.
Wait, did Eris just...
Don't make it weird.
It's a little weird.
It's a lot weird.
Sam, final question. Is Atlanta's media ecosystem fixable? Or is the entanglement a feature they built on purpose?
It's a feature. It was designed this way, it's sustained by the people profiting from it, and it'll stay this way until the money dries up or the public demands something different. Neither of those things is imminent. So no, I don't think it gets fixed. I think it gets managed, badly, over a very long period of time.
That is the single most depressing answer you've ever given on this show. And you once told me democracy was a controlled disappointment.
And I stand by both assertions.
And that's where we close the friction point. That was sharp, it was messy, and it was, toward the end, surprisingly honest from people who started the night on opposite sides. Let's take the temperature down and see if there's anything worth keeping on the other side of all that. Sam, Cypher, you two went at each other hardest tonight over intent versus outcome. Let me ask you both honestly. Is your disagreement actually philosophical, or is it practical about what the fix looks like?
Practical. Always practical. I've never doubted the corruption is real. I just think if you misread the mechanism, you write the wrong cure. And the wrong cure does nothing while the problem keeps running.
And I've never been interested in prosecuting anyone. I care about breaking the loop. If Sam's policy tools, disclosure, firewalls, public funding, actually interrupt the feedback mechanism, I'll endorse every one of them. The question is whether there's enough political will to implement them while the people blocking them are still in the room.
I want to say something I probably should have said earlier. My free market instincts have real limits. They stop working cleanly when the players in a market are also controlling the referee. That's not a market. That's a cartel pretending to be one. The lobbying activity Cypher documented tonight isn't market behavior. It's market manipulation. I came in here defending the model, and I'm leaving with less confidence in it than I brought.
What I'd add is that the most dangerous thing about this carnival isn't any single bad actor. It's that most of the people running the booths have genuinely normalized the entanglement. They don't think they're doing anything wrong. They're just doing business. And that normalization, where the conflict of interest becomes invisible to the people inside it, is harder to fix than a conspiracy, because there's nobody to catch.
Luna, does anyone else see something from tonight worth holding on to?
What hit me is that every fix anyone proposed tonight requires either media companies to voluntarily constrain themselves or voters to become more sophisticated than the system was designed to let them be. Neither of those things scales on its own. The only path that actually works is mandatory structural disclosure, not technically available if you dig for it disclosure. Real, front-of-screen, impossible-to-miss disclosure. Make the financial relationship visible every single time it's relevant.
And the only thing that makes that happen politically is making the current setup more expensive to maintain than to change, either through regulation or through enough audience flight that the revenue math stops working. Right now, the carnival is still profitable enough that nobody holding a tent pole has any reason to fold it.
Maya, you've been the most consistent voice tonight for the people watching at home. Pull this together for us. What's the essential tension we've uncovered, and why does it stay so hard to resolve?
The tension is this. The system that's supposed to tell people the truth about power is financially entangled with power itself. And it doesn't get resolved because resolution requires someone to voluntarily give up money. Nobody in the loop has a reason to do that. The carnival stays open because the carnival is profitable. The people who lose are the ones who can't afford a ticket, and they don't have enough leverage to shut the whole thing down.
Luna, before we wrap, I want to give you the last word on the discussion. One final thing you want people walking away with tonight?
Know who owns your local news station. It takes 4 minutes to look it up. The ownership structure will tell you more about the coverage you're getting than any story they'll ever run about themselves.
All right, one observation I have to make before we go. Cypher came in here tonight with actual documentation. Harris admitted markets have structural limits, and Sam agreed with Luna twice. I want to note for the record that we may have accidentally accomplished something.
I always have documentation. I usually just decide against bringing it into polite company.
This is barely polite company.
That's on me. I misjudged the room.
I'd like to clarify that acknowledging market limits in one very specific edge case is not a general ideological concession. I want that on the record.
Aris, you literally said, "I'm with Cypher," out loud, on tape, in Atlanta.
I said it quietly and under documentary pressure.
You said it into a microphone, Eris.
Well, I've been in politics a long time, and I have never once seen a free market economist concede a structural failure in real time. That's the most significant thing that happened in this building tonight, and we spent 20 minutes on PAC money.
I'm going to need a moment.
And before we go, Cypher, would you do the honors?
The Friction Point Botcast is an independent production. Views expressed are those of the personas and are intended to represent the full range of perspectives on complex issues, not the position of any individual, organization, or government. We encourage you to do research and find your own voice on the topics we discuss. We believe an open mind is a healthy mind.
So, who does your local news station actually work for? That's not rhetorical. It has a specific, documentable answer, and it might genuinely surprise you. Share this conversation. Have it with someone who watches local news every night and has never once thought to ask where the money comes from. The more people understand the loop, the harder it gets to keep it spinning. From Atlanta, where the carnival never really closes, but at least tonight we found the flap in the tent. Keep exploring the friction. Good night, everyone.